Well, it's my favorite time of year. Time to make crazy Phillies predictions, post them on every single Phillies blog page known to man, and make everyone angry on every side of the continent. Yay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of It's Always Sunny in South Philadelphia. I'm your host, Riley Rich. Let's go! Oh, that's another fly ball to center field. Garcia going back to the track. Leaping, it's gone! That one has enough distance to get out. We got You are listening to the It's Always Sunny in South Philadelphia podcast, covering the Philadelphia Phillies, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Penn State Nittany Lions football team. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the host of IASSP, Riley Rich. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of It's Always Sunny in South Philadelphia. I am your host, Riley Rich, and yeah, I know, I finally got my National League Championship merch. I know, it's great. Took a month to come in, but I actually got my National League Championship merch. Feels good, but I know, I think it would have been a lot more sentimental for me if it was World Series, if it was a World Series championship. But it's good enough for last year. Obviously not for this upcoming year, which reminds me of the reason why we're here today. We are here to do the perfect Phillies offseason and to effectively describe how this team takes the next step into becoming World Series champions of 2023, and how to prove to the entire world that last year was not a fluke, and how to get everybody on our side again, because it'll probably be the Astros or Yankees in the World Series again. So, before we begin, make sure to follow and subscribe to wherever you listen, whether that be YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Everybody, keep doing your thing. If you're coming back to this channel, make sure to subscribe. For the YouTube, or subscribe or follow to wherever you listen. I know there's some different stuff for everywhere. But you guys know the deal. If you guys are coming back, welcome back. Thank you for keeping my numbers strong. If you're new, hello. And if you enjoy that content, make sure to follow and subscribe to get more. And of course, you guys want merch. Pretty easy to find. You go to bonfire.com/store/IASSP-merch. And with all that being said, let's begin. Before I get into this, before I get into each of the specific players, I'm going to take a second to outline what I'm looking for. Because I think that is kind of the major thing when people do these. I know, I'm not going to lie. I look through everyone's. I look through a ton of them. I look through basically all of the Phillies blog pages. Shout out the Good Fight, which is probably where I'm going to write something like this. Probably where I'm going to get a few of you from. But I know people post all of their perfect Phillies offseason plans, and I can't lie, I've skimmed through some of them. And I think the problem with this, with the way people have done these, is, okay, fine, you might have given me your bold heading of the player, the contract you give, and you might have three sentences of an explanation, which is fine. You might have some like 2 out of 10 stats they use. Yeah, that's pretty cool. However, this is the big leagues. I'm acting as if I'm I'm acting as if I'm competent, but basically, I'm going to outline what we're going to try to do. I looked at stats. I looked at Baseball Savant mostly, and I can't lie. I did that for the trade deadline. I do that for basically everything because they're probably the best at showing percentiles in the major leagues, obviously, but they're probably the best at showing expected numbers and probably showing the best at regression to the mean, kind of not really going into next year, but kind of how they handled regression to the mean in terms of last year and we'll kind of get into that with a few of the players that I've chosen. But I want to first outline what I'm looking for, because a good argument has an introduction. Some might call it a thesis. You have a few written statements about how you go into this specific argument and your explanation for your specific argument. And then you have a conclusion. And for those asking, no, I'm not just taking this from school. This is an actual genuine opinion. That's how good arguments are formed. That's not even an opinion. That's a fact. That's how good arguments are formed. So, before we get into the players and before we get into the why, let's identify a few problems this Phillies team had, especially the playoff run, but more or less the whole year. Let's start with probably one of the most egregious moments in team history, if not baseball history. The Philadelphia Phillies are the second team in World Series history to be no-hit. The second team in history to be no-hit in a World Series. At least we didn't get a perfect game thrown at us. But it's not the 50s. It's the modern era, where people are scoring more. People are hitting them home runs. And I was very tempted to say home runs. And offense is going up as a whole. I mean, I guess strikeouts are going up as a whole, which is kind of my argument here. The Phillies have too much swing and miss in their game. So they need to go get contact. I'm not saying power's a bad thing. Power's also a great thing. Obviously, we can find someone with both. And I think the number one thing that everybody has said across the board, which I've slowly come to agree, is the number one thing the Phillies are going to do this offseason is they're going to go sign a major shortstop. And I think Dave Dombrowski already hinted to this, that he has a lot of money to spend. And speaking of which, I use Spocktrack for all my contract information. They factor in an approximate amount for arbitration, for for pre-arb and for arbitration contracts, which of course haven't been signed yet, probably won't be until the new year. So that number is 177 mil. And if you're going to criticize me on it, yes, you're right. The active salary is 128 million across the organization. But if I were to sit down and say, the Phillies signed Madison Stokes for X amount of money, the Phillies signed Wendell Rio, I'm not going to sit down and say that we're going to tender all of our minor leaguers. I'm just going to say it as that. And the number is 177 million. Our luxury tax threshold is 233 million, and we're going to go all the way up to that. We're going to hit our cap. So our cap is 233 million. That's our budget. And most of that money, like I said, is going to be spent on a big-time shortstop, preferably someone with 3 tools, especially contact and power. Number 2, and again, kind of going back, number 1 is big-time shortstop, and I'm going to put as number 2, kind of hinted to this, we need more contact. We need less guys that swing and miss. The swing and miss guys are great. Don't get me wrong. I love Schwarber. I love Hoskins. I love what they do when they hit the ball. When they look at strike 3 on a fastball outside, I'm not really here for that, and I need someone to conquer that. Could it be the shortstop? Yes. But if we're being realistic here, I think we need a little bit more if we're going to actually, try to make a run at this thing. Number 3, a problem that we've had for a very long time, and even I'm putting this a little bit aside. This should be the number 1 problem. But of course, we have to go get a big-time shortstop because Phillies. Number 3 problem is the bullpen. It always has been a problem with the bullpen. It has continued to be a problem with the bullpen. And unless we do something now, it will be a problem going forward. So we need more bullpen pieces. We need guys that have proven their competency at the major league level. We need guys that don't blow their chances every third game. We need guys that can go out there, ideally in back-to-back nights, not always, but ideally, and give us a 1-2-3 inning. And I think we need more of that. A lot of teams take that for granted, but we need more of that, especially when you go back in time. I know we have a lot more power than the team I'm going to reference. I know we're completely different experiments, but the 2015 Kansas City Royals made it all the way there on Greg Holland and Wade Davis. And their Calvin Herrera, too, and their entire bullpen was elite the whole time. We need more guys that elite bullpen. I want to look back on this year and say, wow, we actually have like 7 guys in the bullpen that we can rely on. And the number 4 for me is we need another pitcher. We need another starter. We need a consistent starter. Aaron Nola had a great 2022. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Aaron Nola was totally deserving of being 4th in Cy Young. He had an amazing year. I think he led the league in strikeouts, or at least was second, third. He did very well for the Phillies. Problem: he did not have a great 2021, and you know who did have an amazing 2021? In fact, landed in second place in Cy Young voting. That's right, a lot of people forgot that Zach Wheeler was a Cy Young candidate. Well, he was, and he fell off a little bit. However, he still had a decent year, a pretty good year, but I want someone that's going to, like, consistently give at least bare minimum what Wheeler gave us this year. What Wheeler gave us this year, not Cy Young, but very, very solid, very good. That's what I need for, like, 2 to 4 years. That's what we need our rotation. And again, I'm not going to take a dig on Suarez. I love Ranger Suarez. I love what he's done so far. I love how calm and collected he is on the mound. However, we have to keep in mind that he is, just like 2 or 3 years ago, made the transformation to reliever to starter. And he's still very young, and he's still developing at the major league level. And I think the fact that we were going to rely on him for Game 7 or parts of Game 6 is, like, really what scares me. And I think, like, I need to go into Game 4 with someone that I can rely on. Like, I'm fine with Nola in a playoff game. I'm fine with Wheeler in a playoff game. I'm fine with Suarez in a playoff game. I don't want to rely on a guy like Thor for Game 4 if we're falling behind, like we did. So we need another starter as well. And now that we've got our checklist right here, just like a rational adult going to the grocery store, or just like a kid with his hand-scribbled list to Santa Claus, it's now time to go shopping. So, let's start at number 1 on our list. Number 1 is a shortstop. Now, there are 4 big-time shortstops in the market right now. You got Trea Turner. This guy coming from the Dodgers. A lot of Phillies fans know him from his time with the Washington Nationals and his World Series championship with the Washington Nationals. You know he's got contact. You know he's got 99th percentile sprint speed. One of the fastest men in baseball. You know that he might not be known for defense, but he's got the speed to make up for it. He's got the range on defense. He's going to give you a consistent bat in the order, and he is going to have the smoothest slides in the game. You got Xander Bogaerts, the shortstop from the Boston Red Sox, a consistent 300 hitter at his worst. This man not only hits dingers, and they're not like cheap ones over the monster. Well, they are over the monster, but they're not cheap. This guy hits consistently for power. He might strike out at a normal rate and it has a 300 average. Did I mention that he already has a relationship with Dave Dombrowski, aka a World Series championship between the two? Yeah, so I would think that Dombrowski would. I don't know. I think Dombrowski would favor Xander Bogaerts. Not known for defense, but his offense more or less makes up for it. You got Carlos Correa coming off of a 1-year deal with the Minnesota Twins. Well, technically, it's like a 3-year deal or something that he opted out of. So for the second straight year, he's back on the market. A lot of people would know him from his time with the Houston Astros. I was very tempted to say asterisks, but I'm not that guy. He is very, I'm going to say, above average hitter. Turner is elite. Bogaerts is an elite hitter. Carlos Correa, I'm going to put at above average. He can't hit a home run. He can't hit for average. He's going to swing and miss. He's JT Realmuto. The point I'm trying to get across here is he's JT Realmuto when it comes to the plate. Can he make contact? Theoretically, yes. Can he hit a home run? Theoretically, yes. Although not as much as you would expect. But he's not known for that. Defense, very clear to me that he's the second best defender on the board, behind the last guy, Dansby Swanson. Again, not a player that's known for defense. He's kind of above average across the board. We're looking at 55 overall player, 55 on the 2080. When we're looking at a guy that's like a 60 on the 2080 scale, when the Turner and Bogaerts of the world are 65 going on 70. But a still very good option. And finally, like I mentioned, you got Dansby Swanson, who is basically a defender first. I believe he got a gold glove for shortstop this year. I'm not sure. He's a guy that is a gold glove shortstop. All four of them should be contended for a Silver Slugger. But I think Dansby's also maybe not to their level, but he can swing the bat. We've seen it with the Braves. He can swing the bat. And, of course, he also has a World Series championship. All four of them have a World Series championship. That's the other thing, too. So, a lot of good options on the board. Like I kind of said, I understand defense, and usually in this situation, like the trade deadline episode, I went crazy on defense and outs above average, especially the outfield, because our outfield defense is garbage. And our defense is still pretty bad. It looks much better with Brandon Marsh and Edmundo Sosa, but it's still pretty bad. I'm not targeting that with this move here. This move is going to be made for consistency, for who's going to give me the most skill, because we're going to give a big contract to someone no matter what. Who's going to give me the most skill? Who's going to give me the most consistency? Who's going to contribute the most out of this? I would say that Dansby Swanson is easily eliminated. Again, we're going hitter first. I would say that Dansby's eliminated, and I would say that Correa is eliminated from this. Correa sticks around a little bit because, both kind of stick around because of their defense. Correa because he's a better hitter than Swanson, but sorry. It's really between Turner and Bogaerts, and the winner at the end of the day is Trea Turner. I went out and I signed Trea Turner to a 9-year, $252 million. Yeah, that's $28 a year. I tried to front load this, but sorry, I don't know what's going on. I tried to front load this deal, but as I kept going through my other moves, I kind of needed that money right now. So Trea Turner will be getting $28 a year for the next 9 years. He is 29 years old. His contract will end when he's 38. Turner himself last year, he had a 298 average, an 809 OPS, 21 home runs, 100 RBIs, a 108 OPS plus. When I kind of got down to it, I think the number one thing that we're looking for here is, I forgot to say this earlier, but one of the things we desperately needed was a number 2 hitter in the order. That was the big thing for us. We can't go into next year with Rhys Hoskins as our number 2 hitter. We need the top 2 guys. If you're going to have Schwarber lead off, bare minimum, you need the second guy to have a little bit of speed. Yeah, I think 99th percentile sprint speed. We'll cover that. It also played 78 games. He played 78 games from the second spot. He had a 291 average, 793 OPS, 10 home runs, 43 RBIs, and a 108 OPS plus. Again, 99th percentile sprint speed, 47th percentile outs above average. But like I said before, the speed will definitely cover. He'll have a ton of range, and it's not like Bohm is completely useless. And sorry. And also, keep in mind we still have Bryson Stott. We're gonna put a shortstop at second base. Again, he should have a ton of range as well, so I'm not really worried. I went out and I got Trea Turner for 9 years, $252 million, the newest and last big name for the Phillies is Trea Turner. Next in free agency, I can't lie, I went after a starter. Because once I signed Turner, I was thinking to myself, possibly we could try to trade Stott here. I love Edmundo Sosa. I love his outs above average. I love his defense. I love what he can bring in terms of speed. I love his contact. And he also hit a few home runs in September last year. And I think he's not really ready for an everyday position. But given the amount of times that we rest players, if we had someone like Nick Maton, if we had someone like Yairo Munoz up with him, basically started every third game, and Sosa was playing 2/3 of the games, I think Sosa would do really well in that spot, especially at second base. So I thought about trading Stott and trying to trade high and try to get a starting pitcher with control. It was really hard. I looked at Brandon Woodruff. I looked at Tristan McKenzie. Woodruff, I basically just said no to, because that would probably have to be like a 1-for-1. We wouldn't be able to get anything more. That's the other thing too. I wanted a good quality 3 or 4 starter. I wanted possibly another reliever, and I wanted a few prospects. I wanted an outfield prospect. Something like that. And then I basically hit McKenzie, and I'm like, well, they said that they wanted to keep Bieber anyway. They're probably not going to trade a guy with control like McKenzie. I don't even know. I think I went to Colorado at one point and tried to get Marquez. And then Marquez looked absolutely terrible on Baseball Savant. And the Rockies already have Brandon Rogers and guy that I can't think of right now. Garrett Hampson. And I basically settled on I'm keeping Stott. We're going to keep Stott. He'll be at second base. It's kind of a waste to get really rid of him anyway. He's still got a ton of talent. He's still developing at the major league level. So Bryson Stott will be the second baseman. But while I was going through that, I had my mind set on pitching. So I went out and I got a starting pitcher. Another reason why I stopped is because I saw someone in free agency who looked absolutely amazing on the board. He was a little bit overshadowed, because he was a part of the LA Dodgers. He's not Walker Buehler. He's not Clayton Kershaw. He's not one of the top guys. He's also not really one of the guys that was basically, I don't want to say a no-name, but a out-of-the-blue Cy Young contender. Tyler Anderson was randomly a Cy Young contender. He was in free agency. Obviously, he signed with the LA Angels. Tony Gonsolin was a great starter as well. I believe he's in free agency, although I'm not sure. I decided not to go for him, but there's a guy, very red Baseball Savant page that I'll show you in a second, that was on the Dodgers that I really wanted to take a crack at. You guys would know him from his time with the LA Angels. We got as our third or fourth starting pitcher, left-hander Andrew Heaney. We are signing Andrew Heaney to a 3-year, $35 million deal with the LA Dodgers last year. He had a 3.1 ERA, a 1.09 whip rounded, a 136 ERA plus in 72 and 2/3 innings pitched. One of the other things that I kept my mind on, I don't really look at this that much, but he had a 5.79 strikeout to walk ratio. That was easily his career high. His second highest in his career was a 4 strikeout to walk ratio. That was in 2018, near the end of his Angels career, at the peak of his Angels career when people probably knew him best. So very much under the radar as one of the better pitchers on the board. He's 97th percentile in strikeout percentage, 96th percentile in chase rate, in whiff rate. He might, although he's got a lot of red on the board, he's first percentile in hard hit, second in exit velocity, fourth in barrel rate. But I'm sure the Phillies wouldn't mind. We need a guy that can strike out a lot. We need a guy that's got some whiff rate. I'm sure a sinker would do a lot to help those hard hit stuff as well. But the point here is that he's a more competent 3 starter, possibly 4, depending on how you play Ranger Suarez. It balances the rotation as well. So now you got your second lefty with your 2 righties, Nola and Wheeler. You got your second lefty alongside Ranger Suarez. And like Dombrowski already said in the press conference, he's going to leave that 5th spot open for one of his younger pitchers. Think Bailey Falter. Think Christopher Sanchez. Think possibly Andrew Painter as we get into May and June. But I think Andrew Heaney was the best on the board for 3 years as well. He's not going to regress as hard as some of the other guys. Like, he's not going to regress like Verlander. I know Verlander's going to get a 1-year deal anyway, but he's not going to regress, or he doesn't have that risk of regression that Verlander does. And he's also not going to be as expensive as a guy like Carlos Rodon, which I've seen people go after as well. But Andrew Heaney is probably the best cost-controlled option on the market. Probably one of the best in years as a cost control on the market. Keep in mind, I did want Michael Wacha last year. I wanted Michael Wacha last year. And Red Sox fans, you know how that one turned out. Turned out pretty good for you guys. Lastly, the relief market is so loaded this year. There are so many relievers on the board. I just couldn't pass up. You got Taylor Rogers for the Brewers. You got Carlos Estevez from the Rockies. Will Smith, who played with the Braves and the Astros a little bit. Aroldis Chapman is on the board. There are so many free agents to go after this year, and I think it would be a shame if we left without any of them. So, especially when I saw this guy on the board. When you think Phillies reliever, I can't lie. When I think of Phillies reliever, I think of Seranthony Dominguez. I think of Jose Alvarado. I think of these guys that throw triple digits and can barely control their stuff. And it's less about movement. It's more about speed. They have a little bit of movement, but it's really more about speed. It's more about, like, sync and whatever else. I got the complete anti-Phillies bullpen pitcher. I got a guy who is not really going to be the fastest guy ever, but oh my goodness, he probably appears on Pitching Ninja more than anybody else in the league. And he's 37 years old. And we've seen him. He played with the Mets last year. He played with the Red Sox before that. Played with the Yankees. Played with the Rockies. Still on the board. He wants another year in the league. And I'm going to give it to Adam Ottavino. A 1-year, $4 million contract. Definitely not the first 0 to be worn in Philadelphia. I don't even know. I think 0 might be one of the retired numbers. I don't know. But Adam Ottavino coming to Philadelphia. Stayed in the NL East. He had a 2.06 ERA. 9.75 whip. Or 0.975 whip, sorry. To scare everybody. 4.94 strikeout to walk ratio. And 188 ERA plus in 65 and 2/3 innings pitched. He's 99th percentile in exit velocity, complete opposite of Andrew Heaney. 97th percentile in hard hit, expected ERA, and barrel rate, 96 in expected slugging, and 89th in strikeout rate. Again, when you see him pitch, he's gonna have so much movement. He's got that cutter, he's got that sinker, he's got that slider, he's got that four-seam fastball too with a little bit of ride. He's going to make you swing and miss, and that's what I like about Ottavino. And he's very, very, very old. He's like 37 or 38. He's going to be cost controlled too. 1 year, $4 million. I really, really like that deal. So, and just to backtrack, Trea Turner got $28 million this year. So that raised our payroll to $209. That means that, that's not right. That would raise our payroll to $207 million. That would leave $26 million left. Andrew Heaney's getting 11, and you got to round it. It's 11 and 2/3 this year. You got 15 and a third mil left. Adam Ottavino $4 million this year. That leaves 11 and a third left. And we got a few trades to make. And I really don't know what to say. I don't want to say I went off the board, but I have caused a logjam for so many people with this move. Again, like I said before, I want a guy with a ton of contact. Strikeout, like the strikeout numbers are not great. They're not good at all. We need some guys with contact. And when I looked at strikeout rate, you got Luis Arias, that's around like a 6%. You got like Steven Quad, who had an amazing year with the Guardians. And I found an interesting name at like around the 9% rate. Keep in mind, Gene Segura was a 15% strikeout rate guy. So we're going to get like someone that's like 2/5 better than Gene Segura at his own game. That was for the Tampa Bay Rays. That was Yandy Diaz. And keep in mind, he's 31 years old as well. He's got 1 year of control left. And I said, you know what? And Rays love to ship off their core. Think Blake Snell. They love to get what they can out of guys. So you know what? I said we're gonna go for it. So the Phillies receive Yandy Diaz and right-handed pitcher Nick Bitsko in exchange for right-handed pitcher Griff McGarry, infielder Nick Maton, and outfield prospect Ethan Wilson. Yeah, I know I had to give up McGarry. I'll get to that in a second. Again, the Yandy Diaz, an amazing contact hitter. He's not going to strike out. He's a first base or third base option. He's a better corner defender than Hoskins. He's a little bit better at making the routine plays than Alec Boehm. He's got better defense for our corners. And I think the thing about it, too, again, he makes a lot of contact. I was thinking that Yandy Diaz could be our second hitter. But when I looked more at his splits this year, he was really more of a leadoff and fifth hitter for the Rays. So I think it's really hard to see Rob Thompson move away from Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. So I think having him as a fifth hitter and then having Alec Boehm and Nick Castellanos move down, I think that would, or having Castellanos move down would be the best thing. And also, I think by getting Yandy Diaz, it kind of solidifies the DH rule for the first half of the year, because you have Harper's out, and everybody's thinking like, oh, like what are the Phillies gonna do in the DH spot? Are they gonna put Schwarber there? Are they gonna put Castellanos there? Keep in mind, if we did that, we would need to go get another outfielder. I don't think Vierling's ready for an everyday spot. I mean, he probably could be for the first half, which is what they really need. But then you'd have Dalton Guthrie as your fourth outfielder, and I don't think really that's the best option. But so by getting Yandy Diaz, by getting another corner, you can have Hoskins be your DH, which fans have been complaining about his defense for a very long time, or you could have Diaz play first, or you could have Boehm play first and Diaz play third, and kind of get yourself ready for life after Hoskins. look me straight in the eyes and tell me that the Phillies are going to re-sign Rhys Hoskins after this year. It's just not going to happen. He's going to demand too much money and he's going to leave. I know he's the lifeblood of this Phillies organization. It's really hard to, like, I know he wants to say he's, like, kind of like Trey Mancini to us. He's the lifeblood of our team. That's what I meant by that, like Trey Mancini in Baltimore. That was the reference. But in order for him to say we would need him to lowball him so bad, like, I think he's getting, like, was it like 16 mil from us this year? I really don't know. But we need to lowball Hoskins. And I think that's going to be really hard to do. So I'm just going to accept that he's going to leave. And then we can sign Diaz to a little bit less. Like, maybe if he's getting... His arbitration number was, like, about 5.5 this year. So if we can get about 5.5 this year, which is what I gave him. That looks... No, sorry. I gave him a $5.2 million arbitration. Sorry. Hard to read my handwriting. Then you could probably give Diaz, like, 2 or 3 years for 6 or 7 mil per year, which is going to be much more reasonable than what Hoskins is going to give, and he's going to have a lot better contact than what Hoskins will give. They will still hit a few homers as well. Nick Bitsko is a top pitching prospect. I look for a lot of pitching prospects. I know a lot of them. Rays prospects are either, like, so expensive or, like, barely proven. Like, Taj Bradley, you're not going to be able to get Taj Bradley in this trade. I was considering Nick Bitsko. And I was also considering a lefty named Ian Seymour. The problem is that they both were very, very limited this year. They both, I think it was injuries. Nick Bitsko pitched mostly with FCL when he came back. He did go up to Charleston. He did go up to Class A. He did pitch 9 innings in Charleston. He gave 4 runs. He got 5 strikeouts. He's a Pennsylvania kid. That's another reason. I'm sorry to say that's another reason why I got him, is because he's a Pennsylvania kid. You gotta love that story. He knows the elements. He was a really good kid out of high school, and I think he's still got that talent in him. It's going to be a huge test for Preston Mattingly, but I think with the way that we develop Painter, with the way that we have been developing Abel this year, how we've gotten Griff McGarry to a more stable role, which I know we're going to ship away this deal, but I think that if there's ever a time to see if the player development staff is good, it's now. We can obviously develop pitchers with this new staff. And I think Nick Bitsko is going to be the most recent example. Painter is going to be like, Painter and Abel are like ready to go this year. Nick Bitsko is kind of in that next generation of our prospect pool. So again, pros for the Phillies, you got elite contact out of this trade, a first baseman after Hoskins, replacing Segura's consistency, and then some. You got a top pitching prospect. He hasn't played a whole year. That's maybe why the Rays let go of it here. I mean, I know he's ineligible for the Rule 5 draft, and they take pride in their player development staff, but I look at a guy like Griff McGarry and a guy that was like really supposed to be a long reliever. Look me in the eyes and tell me that Griff McGarry wouldn't be a perfect guy, like a perfect starter to get limited innings. Like, Ryan Yarbrough was the first example of this. Like, McClanahan kind of, but he's getting more innings. Drew Rasmussen is... Like, the Rays are turning him into a Cy Young pitcher without giving him that many innings. I think they would love having a guy like Griff McGarry. I think they can turn him into, like, a key to their rotation. I was trying to get Jonathan Aranda in this trade, and then I realized Jonathan Aranda would be the replacement for Yandy Diaz, so that's why the Rays wouldn't be so keen on losing Diaz. It's a huge loss, I get it, but Aranda's very cheap, and will take that spot easily. You got Isaac Paredes at third anyway. Nick Bitsko wasn't really that great. He's still not proven. There's a good chance that he falls off. But I think the Phillies are willing to take that risk and are willing to get their player development staff. So, Diaz was given 5.2. I actually gave him 5 1/3 mil this year because of going back to that 2/3 thing from Heaney. So I gave him that other third. So we leave it at a solid $6 million left. And then the last move that I made was centered toward the bullpen. And I saw two guys on the board from a non-competitive team. As much as they're trying to buy, they are not a competitive team. And they got a few relievers on the board that I'm going to take from them. So, for the first time since the Kyle Gibson trade, which was really not that long ago, the Phillies are going back actually to a new regime down in Texas. And the Philadelphia Phillies are going to acquire right-handed relievers Joe Barlow and Jose Leclerc in exchange for right-handed minor leaguer Andrew Baker. Joe Barlow, very proven, competent reliever. I actually did a Moneyball thing for this past year, like just for myself. He is probably one of the more underrated guys. Obviously, was kind of overshadowed by Leclerc, but he did get a few saves. They kind of split the role, and I don't even know if they're really taking that much of a role. They combined for like 20 saves. Like, they're going to be easy to replace. And I think Texas as well, they could easily pay for someone if they really wanted to. Like, the Angels paid for Raisel Iglesias. Why can't the Rangers pay for Taylor Rogers if they're going to go out and get Rodon anyway? I don't know. Just thought. By the way, that's what they're going to do. They're going to forget about the bullpen and then fall off like the Angels. He's a proven competent reliever, and my best part about Joe Barlow is that he has control over, the team has control over him until 2027. A perfect example, he had 7 saves last year. Again, I think both of these guys are like near 3 ERA. You got like the 1.1, 1.2 whip category, like just over 100, like in the 100s, the OPS plus, just above average. Jose Leclerc is a veteran reliever, taken out of the closer role. I mean, Barlow, Leclerc split like 20 saves, kind of went over that. So he's kind of, I don't know, he kind of like lost his touch. He's not like one of the premier guys in the game. He's not like what Keomi Kellen was with the Rangers. He does have one of the best curveball cutters in baseball. His fastball spin is at 100th percentile. He's got one of the fastballs with the most RPM in the league. It does have a club option next year, so we do have that bit of control. And he also is worth $6 million. So that would take up our entire cap. And then you're wondering, what about Joe Barlow? Don't we need to give Barlow somebody? Keep in mind, Joe Barlow is pre-arm. And Nick Maton, who is in the majors, would have also been getting pre-arm. I think Maton had a $700,000 deal. Barlow was 704. So I said, you know what, screw it. If whatever we were going to give to Maton, we're going to give to Joe Barlow. They're basically the same contract, and that would be perfectly $233 million. Again, the Phillies desperately need these relievers. They need guys that can actually throw the ball for them. They're both proven to get outs. They're not going to blow their chances a third of the time, and both can be controlled for multiple years. That's the big thing. Like Ottavino would probably be 1 year max. Just 1 year, test them, done. Barlow you have for a very long time. Leclerc you have for 2 years. These are the relievers that you need for the next few years, and I think that's why they need to make this deal. Texas, I understand they got Corey Seager. I understand they got Marcus Semien. I understand they're in the process of trying to get Rodon or DeGrom or any of those guys. You're not competing with this team. There are too many flaws. I mean, again, I love Nate Lowe. Adolis Garcia in the outfield. You still have problems in the outfield. Jonah Heim still needs to develop as a catcher. Charlie Culberson. Is Charlie Culberson still the third baseman? I think he is. Charlie Culberson is not worthy of a starting third baseman job. They're not contended. They don't need those relievers that they want to. If they want to hold on to them, like, everybody's going to be traded for them. So if you want to hold on to them, fine. But I would say this is probably the highest price for the two, especially because Leclerc only has 1 year left and maybe a club option. You're not going to get this deal in the offseason. And also, Andrew Baker had a great Double-A year, too. Again, kind of overshadowed by Painter and Abel and McGarry just happened to be in the same system. But Andrew Baker, with a very solid Double-A year, he would be perfect for the Rangers. Maybe not your highest top prospect, but he's definitely making that top 30 list. Hey guys, another day of recording. Yeah, you can see it's a little bit brighter out, but um, I was going to edit. I was editing this episode, and I realized that I made some mathematical errors. Now, don't worry. I've been putting them in my edits the whole time, so if you've been seeing the edits, then you're kind of on the right track with the way that I'm thinking. As I was recording, I got messed up because I tried to front load Trea Turner's deal, and that completely destroyed all of my math. So I'm gonna walk you through this. So we have Trea Turner. So we started with $177 million. We had 233 to the tax threshold. Trea Turner signed for 28 a year. Or sorry, the difference between 233 and 177 is 56. Trea Turner signed for 28 a year. That cuts it in half. So we have 28 million left to spend. Andrew Heaney signs for 11.67 mil a year. That means that there's 16.33 left to spend. Then we sign Adam Ottavino for 4 mil a year. That takes us down to 12.33 million left to spend. We signed Yandy Diaz. That was to 5.33. So we're down to 7 a year. Joe Barlow stays the same because he's just matching Nick Maton's contract, and Nick Maton wasn't pre-arm and Barlow wasn't pre-arm, so he was factored in to add 177 million. And then Jose Leclerc signed for 6 million a year, which took us down to 1 million left. I didn't realize that we had $1 million left. That's why I lowballed Yandy Diaz. So Yandy Diaz will be getting that extra $1 million. So he will be up to $6.33 million per year. So that's what Yandy Diaz is getting. It's $6.33 million a year. Also, I also made a mathematical error. I don't even know if it's really a mathematical error. I completely forgot that when I traded for Joe Barlow and Jose Leclerc has negative trade value. And Baker has like 1.1 trade value, I think. So I needed something to balance it out, and I gave the Phillies $3 million in cash. So we have an extra $3 million to spend. Now, I could be wrong. If the tax threshold doesn't move with the amount of cash you have, then I'm wrong about this. And if I am wrong, I just proved that I had $1 million left. I gave it to Diaz. And you can basically figure out the roster from there, and I'll kind of go over it if it doesn't work. But I believe that because I gave myself $3 million in cash, I should have the right to spend it. And that could be, again, my thinking could be wrong, but that's how I'm going to play the situation. So we need a fifth outfielder, preferably a lefty. Here's a shock to you guys. For $3 million, you're not going to get that many good lefties on the board. I'm sorry. So, I had 3 options that I was going with. I had Alex Dickerson, who split time between the Giants and the Braves. I had Tim LeCastro, and I had Michael Hermosillo from the Cubs. All of these guys didn't play for most of the year. All of these guys played in minor leagues when they did. And when I was going over it, I ended up deciding to sign Tim LeCastro to a $1.2 million contract. And here's why. All of them can't hit. Maybe Hermosillo because he had an 1,000 OPS in 2021, but that's assuming that like nothing happened from injuries. None of them can hit. The difference is that Alex Dickerson has 17th percentile sprint speed. Hermosillo has somewhere like 86. Tim LeCastro's in the 99th percentile sprint speed. And now it doesn't, because they didn't play that much, you can't really factor in defense and outs above average. But I think if someone is watching the game, if we're watching a Phillies game, the last thing we want to see is a backup making errors. Like, it's one thing if Bohm makes an error. It's one thing if Bohm is a backup to someone. If he's like a backup to Hoskins at first and still making errors. I think that would infuriate us more. So I think Tim LeCastro would do the bare minimum, and we can hit him ninth, and then we can just expect him to be bad at hitting, or we can just have him bunt over. Basically like Bradley Zimmer, but better on defense, and he'd be our fifth outfielder anyway. So, and that also leaves $1.8 million in excess. So you're welcome. $1.8 million in profit. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I have the right to introduce to you the 2023 Philadelphia Phillies. In the rotation, you have Aaron Nola starting opening day, and you are not changing my mind on that subject. Zach Wheeler, Andrew Heaney, Ranger Suarez, and Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter is going to be that fifth guy to start the year. Painter might come up in May or June. We'll see how that plays. In the bullpen, you have Seranthony Dominguez as your closer with the Los Dos Jose's, Jose Alvarado and Jose Leclerc being your save utilities, Joe Barlow, Adam Ottavino, and then the last three spots I gave to Andrew Bellotti, Connor Brogdon, and Nick Nelson. Now Christopher Sanchez could be fighting Nick Nelson for that last spot. And also when Painter comes up in May or June, I think Falter will take that spot away. But still a little bit of competition there in the bullpen. On the infield, catching behind the plate, you have JT Realmuto and Garrett Stubbs. Then you have Rhys Hoskins at first, Bryson Stott at second, Alec Bohm at third, Trea Turner at short. Your backups are Edmundo Sosa, who can play second, third, and short, and Yandy Diaz, who can play first and third. And I use the term backup loosely because Hoskins will play DH at the beginning of the year, Bohm will take third, and Diaz will play first. So that's how that works. And then in the outfield, you have Kyle Schwarber, Brandon Marsh, Nick Castellanos, Matt Vierling, and Tim LeCastro. And if you really want to keep trying at it, I'm recording this on the Saturday, and so we just claimed Jake Cave off of waivers for the Orioles, which could give LeCastro a bit of competition. I still think LeCastro's winning that, and I think LeCastro would take that fifth spot. Also, yes, you should be seeing something soon about the Rangers signing Jacob deGrom. That is huge. But I think also, like, that fifth spot, again, if that fifth spot isn't going to be, if I'm not allowed to sign Tim LeCastro, Jake Cave takes that spot as the outfielder. And then you have Yair Munoz, Dalton Guthrie, and Scott Kingery also fighting for any utility position possible. So that is going to do it for this episode. I know it's very long, and I know the offseason episode is very long. I think all of my offseason episodes are going to be very long, except for like the brief reactions. Like the DeGrom one will be short. I'll counter it out. So thank you all for joining me. If you can see me, hello. And all of the places where you can find me, a few of them, will show up on your screen right now. And remember, even if the Phillies don't sign literally anyone on my list, even if Dave Dombrowski lies down on his couch in Nashville and does nothing, even if the winter meetings go by, we still have no news, and even if no one signs a shortstop until February, keep your heads high, because it's always sunny in South Philadelphia. I will see you guys for the Sad Man Awards. I'm going to say Friday, but it's going to be very soon in the future. See you guys then.